about this because, well, things could get a little bit interesting. Now, here's where we're going to find out concerning, MAGA, the supporters, not necessarily their cult leader. We'll get to him momentarily. We're going to find out a little bit about the supporters. Just how fake and hypocritical they're willing to be this year. Oh yeah, we're going to find out. And it's going to be a damn need to find this out. So, the Republican Party nominee for 2024 on the presidential level is yet again Donald Trump. Now, we know that he has to make a selection for his VP. And they released a short list of the people in contention. There's a good number of women candidates in contention. There's one Latino man in contention. 2 black men are in contention. And about 2 white men are in contention. So it's a pretty diverse list for Republicans. I gotta start off with the positives here. Because, wow, the negatives are going to add up quickly. Now, follow me on this. It's a pretty diverse list. Now, we happen to know that MAGA is not about diversity, right? They can't stand diversity. That's the D and the E and the I, diversity. They don't like diversity. No, not at all. So, just on that short list, I said it's a pretty diverse list. But MAGA doesn't like diversity. So, when they saw that list, you got to put yourself in their shoes for a moment. Even if you're not MAGA, you got to enjoy the humor of this all. When they saw that list and how diverse it was in terms of gender and ethnicity, they probably were pulling their hair out, pissed off. They didn't like that, believe you me. A lot of MAGA doesn't like that list. They're not talking about it that much, but, that's a surefire sign that people don't like something. Because if they liked it, they would be raving about it. Yeah. Well, the reason I didn't mention Vivek Ramaswamy is because Donald Trump has been reported to have already told Vivek Ramaswamy he was not going to be the VP. Yeah, he already told him personally. So, they had him pictured on the short list, but we already know he's out of contention. No surprise there. Yeah. So, let's get down to some specifics here. It's my belief, okay, this is just my opinion, whoever Trump picks to be his VP is going to actually be a strong contender at the convention in Milwaukee to be the actual nominee. Trump is not going to, be the nominee by the convention. And if he's still the nominee by the Republican Party convention, boy, everybody's going to be laughing. It's going to be a complete joke and probably a landslide. So they'll have to get him out of there. So the theory goes like this. Whoever the nominee picks to be his VP, that person is more than likely going to be, considered the front runner at the convention if they have a brokered convention. Well, here's the problem with that theory. If Trump goes with Tim Scott, the senator out of South Carolina, who a lot of people believe that that's the number one pick on the list right now, Tim Scott. If Trump goes with Senator Tim Scott, a black man, MAGA is really, really going to be upset. Yeah, they're going to be pissed. They're not going to like that at all. And, you know, nobody can tell me otherwise. Now, here's the thing. You can't be anti-black and then, you know, just go along with having a black VP. No. No. You say, will MAGA vote for Trump if he picks Tim Scott? I'm going to explain something to you, okay? Let me explain this, and then that'll be helpful. Trump might pick Tim Scott to be his VP. Now, why do I say he might pick Tim Scott? Because he's a con man. And con men know this, that they have to try to con people in order to buy into what they're conning them to buy into. Yeah. So, the Republican Party has a real problem with black Americans. They don't vote Republican because there's too many, you know, races and a whole lot of issues with the Republican Party. So there's this whole working theory in the ether that black men are going to vote for Donald Trump in 2024. Now, they didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2016. They didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2020. But in 2024, you know, the third time's the charm. Yeah. So anyway, the theory goes like this. Black men are ready and willing to vote for Donald Trump in 2024. And if the Republicans can siphon off enough of the black vote, they could potentially withhold the election from a Democrat running for president. So could Donald Trump pick Tim Scott to be his VP? Absolutely. Yeah. To try to, you know, con black men into voting Republican. Now, here's what I'll say about this. And I'm only going to say this one time. If Donald Trump were to pick Tim Scott to be his VP, Tim Scott would never make it to inauguration. Yeah, he wouldn't make it. Now, you read in between the lines what I mean by he wouldn't make it. Okay? He just wouldn't make it. Because, you know, they're never going to have Tim Scott be VP with Donald Trump 77, 78 years of age. They know that he's in rapid decline. Okay? So, if he were to make it all the way and actually win, and he selected Tim Scott, no, Tim Scott would be fired before inauguration. And the real person they really want to be VP would be put on that ticket. Tim Scott would be used to get a vote up until Election Day. Past Election Day, he would be fired. And you say, where do I get the precedent that that possibly could happen? Well, look at what happened to Anthony Scaramucci. You all remember Anthony Scaramucci? Yeah. He got hired for 9 days and he was fired on his 9th day. Yeah. So, no, Tim Scott would only be hired to sucker black men into voting for Donald Trump. And on Inauguration Day, you would never see it. Yeah, you read between the lines what I mean by that. Tim Scott and Donald Trump don't even like each other. A lot of people don't know this. And I know he endorsed Trump during the primary, but that was purely for political purposes. Yeah. He wants to be the VP. Yeah. Because he knows that Donald Trump, you know, if he's elected, he's not going to be around very much longer. What is he, 77, 78? Poor health. They're doing a lot to prop up Trump. Everybody knows this that's in the Beltway, the establishment. We all know. Even folks in New York. Folks know. They're doing quite a bit to prop him up. Now, conventional wisdom says that the VP is the person next in line. So, he would most likely be the VP, Tim Scott. And then, possibly the president. I just don't see it, you all. The Republicans, you all. No, I just don't see it with them. One of the reasons that, Trump and Tim Scott don't necessarily get along with each other is because when Trump was president, you have to appoint judges. Well, he appointed quite a few. Let's get that straight. But there were a few that he appointed that, were known to be Ku Klux Klan's members, white supremacists. No. These lists were given off by the Federalist Society. These folks were known to be Klansmen. Tim Scott didn't vote for those judges. I can't remember off the top of my head how many there were. Something like maybe 6 or 7 or 8 federal judges Tim Scott voted against. Because they were known Klansmen. Everybody knew who they were. So, with that information, you take with that what you will. You think MAGA doesn't know about this or can't find this out? Trump definitely knows because, you keep track of the judges you nominate, who gets appointed and who doesn't. Yeah. So, I don't think it would go over well with MAGA having Tim Scott as their VP. I think they would try to fake and pretend that they're okay with it. You would see bumper stickers from people who are white supremacists. Trump Scott 2024. Those are the ones you would know to stay away from. Because they would try to pretend hardcore that they all of a sudden, magically, love black Americans. Yeah. Overnight, you would see the hypocrisy. Oh, I have no problem. Tim Scott is a great American patriot. Yeah. Sure. Sure. Be weary of those people in MAGA who start singing that kind of song. Be very weary. Yeah. If I were Tim Scott, I would not want to be VP, but he's thinking about being president. He knows the VP job is temporary, if he gets it. He's thinking Trump is not going to be around. He's going to prison. I'm just telling you what he's thinking. That's what anybody who wants to be his VP is thinking. It's not just Tim Scott. Yeah. So, if you have that knowledge in mind, you're like thinking you're not going to be the VP, you're going to be the president. Yeah. That's why I said I don't think Tim Scott would make it to Inauguration Day. Because, if Trump wins and he's a convicted felon, it doesn't matter. He's going to have to go to prison. You can't not go to prison just because you're president. And yet, I don't know what would happen. It's like saying, well, if the president becomes incapacitated, the second in charge, the VP, takes over. It would be on the vice president to pardon him, I guess. Hey, let me ask you a question. If you're the VP and the president gets convicted of felonies and has to go to prison, would you pardon this guy, or would you just become president? I don't think you would pardon the individual. You want to be president, right? Nobody wants to just be the VP. I mean, it's a good job and all, but you have other bigger ambitions of one day becoming president. If that happens to you through no circumstances of your own, would you pardon that person? And you're already president? I don't think so. No. So we're in uncharted territories, even in that kind of, thinking. I don't think Tim Scott or anyone would pardon him. No. To be honest with you, no. They're president. Why wouldn't they want to be president? This doesn't make any sense. See, a lot of people don't even think about it like that. If this person has to go to prison and you become the president, why would you pardon somebody and no longer want to be president anymore? No. I'm just telling you what I would do. I wouldn't pardon him. Yeah. Why would I? So, it's that weird circumstance. And then, if Trump is not on the ballot by the time the convention starts, and Tim Scott is the VP, I guarantee you, at the convention, it'll be contested. And Tim Scott most likely won't be the ultimate nominee, even if he's the VP selection. Yeah. Remember, I've always told you all, I believed it was going to be Glenn Youngkin as the Republican nominee outside of that convention. Coming out of the convention, I'm still holding to this. I still hold that the governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, will be the Republican nominee in 2024. I still hold to that. I'm not changing that. I believe the convention, the Republican convention, is going to be a brokered convention. Yeah, I'm still holding to that too. Watch, you wait, you'll see. This is going to be a crazy year. Watch and see. If it's Tim Scott versus Glenn Youngkin, child, Glenn Youngkin is going to get that nomination. The Republican Party is never going to nominate a black man to be their nominee. It's just not going to happen. Tim Scott didn't go anywhere in the primary, did he now? So what makes you think those delegates at the convention would vote for him? And which ones exactly? I believe it would be Ron DeSantis who would give Glenn Youngkin a difficult run for his money at the convention. But Ron DeSantis ran such a horrid campaign that Glenn Youngkin can say, look, I wasn't even in contention. Nobody knows me. I can come out here, be a fresh and clean slate. I'm not Trump. I'm not in prison. I'm not Tim Scott, who couldn't even stay in to Iowa. I'm not Ron DeSantis, who has no personality. Yeah, Glenn Youngkin actually will probably be the nominee. So, Tim Scott, even if he gets selected, they'll knock him down at the convention. Facts. All facts. So it's only a ploy to get a certain voter block. But, nobody's going to fall for this. Tim Scott, you all, he was the one put in charge of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, right? He was negotiating for the Republicans. Cory Booker and Karen Bass were negotiating for the Democrats. And they said the sticking point was qualified immunity. Now, why couldn't they just get rid of qualified immunity? You're telling me that's the only sticking point to getting a huge criminal justice reform bill passed in this country? Giving qualified immunity to folks that don't need it? Yeah, somebody said it's a dangerous job, that's why they have it. So we only have one profession in the entire planet that's dangerous, right? Now, watch this. All the folks that say qualified immunity is so necessary, conservatives, right? How come in the United States military, they don't have qualified immunity? Yeah, think about that. Isn't being sent thousands of miles away from home to fight enemy combatants, isn't that a dangerous job? How come you don't have qualified immunity for that job? Yeah. You can't just kill anybody that you see. You could get court-martialed when you come back. So, they wanted to keep qualified immunity, in my opinion, so they could keep lynching going in America. Yeah. This is a way where the state sanctions the murder of mentally ill and Black Americans. Yeah. Because people just say it's Black Americans. No, it's mentally ill people as well. That's the category as well. Go and look at it. The numbers are staggering. This is, I think I said it once in passing, this is the Western solution to their mental health crisis. Using law enforcement as an extermination tool. Yeah. Not a good method in my opinion, but that's what happens when you don't want to fund certain things adequately, like public health. You get a mental health crisis. And all Western societies have this crisis. It's not just the United States. Yeah. Mental health is a huge thing throughout the Western world, period. Don't let anybody fool you. Rest in peace to the victims in Australia of the Bondi attacker. Ran into a mall, you all. Just started stabbing people. Lunatic. Yeah. And you know how many people there are like that in Western societies? It's staggering, the amount. It's staggering. And so they couldn't get qualified immunity, so they couldn't do the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Tim Scott is primarily the one responsible for that. Yeah. You negotiate for years and years and years, and then you just come out and tell the citizenry you couldn't get it done. So I'm like, what is Tim Scott's claim to fame? What has he done? Nothing. This would have been the biggest thing, the Criminal Justice George Floyd and Policing Act thing. And he couldn't get it done. Yeah. On top of that, he gaslighted Black Americans. He famously or infamously said that America is not a racist country. Now, why did you vote against those racist judges that Trump nominated if America is not racist? Yeah, explain that one to us, Tim. Why did you vote against those federal judges that Donald Trump appointed if America America is not racist. Why do you not want those type of dudes on the bench? Somebody's going to have to ask him this question if, he becomes the nominee. No, I don't think it's going to fool very many people at all. I think Trump is at a base ceiling and he can't go any further. Yeah. Tim Scott is actually going to maybe be a plus on the margins and a minus on the margins. Because for every black man that ends up voting for Trump because Tim Scott is on the ticket, a white woman is going to leave and vote for Biden because Tim Scott is on the ticket. Yeah. What the hell does Tim Scott have to do with reproductive care? He's out there saying that he's for abortion bans and things. It doesn't benefit women at all to have Tim Scott on the ticket. Yeah. It's two out of touch dudes. Yeah, absolutely. No, it would help on the margins and it would hurt on the margins. It would be a draw in my opinion. It would be a complete draw. Yeah. And I think it would be a disappointment to MAGA. Their spirits would go down quite a bit. Yeah. They would start to get worried about Trump. Seriously worried. Yeah, they would be like, I don't know about this. He doesn't know what he's doing, They're going to have to say that Tim Scott is a DEI hire. He didn't earn it. They're going to have to say all of those things, you all. What, are they just anti-Democrat? They're not anti-black, you all. They're anti-Democrat. Because they said that the mayor in Baltimore, who just happened to be a black man, that's DEI. They said that, our current vice president, she's DEI. The Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, she's DEI. Now, I know they all happen to be Democrats, but they also happen to be black. Maybe they're just anti-Democrat. Maybe we'll find that out, too. I don't know. I think they're anti-Democrat, but they're anti-black, too. I think they're both. Exactly. We're going to discover a whole host of whether they've been this hypocritical all this time or not. Because I don't see how they could not call Tim Scott a DEI hire. I really don't. You think that MAGA doesn't think that there's a more qualified white man than Tim Scott? You're out of your mind. Yeah. You think the Federalist Society, who pushed those judges to be nominated by Trump, and they got voted down by Tim Scott, you think they have a good opinion of Tim Scott? No. And Donald Trump insults Tim Scott. Listen to how he talks about it. Yeah. He said Tim Scott worked harder for him than he did himself. Yeah. That's an insult. To tell a grown man you did more for me than you did for yourself. That's an insult. It's belittling someone. Yeah, it's belittling them. Yeah. Right to his face, he belittles it. Now, you don't think Tim Scott knows he's being belittled? Absolutely he knows. But he's going along with it. I really love you. He's going along with it. For the job. Potentially. But when he gets that job, he's not going to give a damn about Trump. And Trump knows that. Because Trump doesn't give a damn about Tim Scott. And Tim Scott knows that. No, there's no way I would want to be his VP. The first thing I would do if I'm Tim Scott and I get chosen, I would probably give Mike Pence a call. I'd say, Mike, can you give me some tips about how to get out alive? How to stay safe? You all laugh, but I'm telling you, with 2 weeks left to go on your job contract, could you imagine your boss trying to unalive you? I'm just saying. If I were Tim Scott, I'd call Mike Pence and say, hey, can you give me some tips? And number one tip Mike Pence is going to give him is don't become his VP. He can send him a picture of the noose and gallows on the Capitol lawn. Tell him that's what he erected for me, and I'm a white evangelical Christian man. What the hell do you think they're going to do to you? And you're a black man. It's common sense, but some things are not so common. The MAGA people you see, remember I told you this, the MAGA people you see with Trump and Scott, t-shirts, bumper stickers, it'll be a lot of white dudes. Be very, very careful of those dudes. They're openly hostile and racist. They have to overcompensate. And that's the way they do it. Oh yeah, I'm not a racist. You mean the same person that's driving around yelling out the N-word now has a black man on their vehicle for vice president? You do that kind of mental gymnastics in your mind to see how that works out. Yeah. No, they know that Tim Scott would never be vice president. No. They wouldn't go for that. No, I'm telling you. No. They would only go along, MAGA would only go along with it because they know it's a con job. That's why I'm telling you all be weary of those type of dudes. Because they would go along with it knowing that it's a con job. Trump is conning, trying to con black men. Yeah. Well, why would Tim Scott go along with it? Well, because Tim Scott wants to be president. And he figures Trump will most likely go to prison, which more than likely he will. And it's a game of endurance. Yeah. But when you're in a den of vipers, that's pretty hard to endure. It's not impossible, but it's pretty hard. You see what happened to Daniel Cameron in Kentucky, right? He was Attorney General, black conservative, up-and-coming star, ran for governor of Kentucky. Shouldn't he be governor now? He's a Republican. No, the Democrat was re-elected. Andy Beshear. How'd that happen? Kentucky is an overwhelming Trump state, red state. Well, I tell you what happened. Daniel Cameron was responsible for Breonna Taylor and not getting her and her family justice. So black Americans didn't support Daniel Cameron. And racist white Americans weren't going to vote for a black person. So he didn't get elected. Yeah. Now you think those same people that didn't vote for Daniel Cameron are going to vote for Tim Scott? No. 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 And Tim Scott knows this too. He doesn't stand a snowball's chance in heaven or hell of ever winning an election for the Republicans. His only shot is to be VP and then for Trump to go to prison. That's what he's betting on. That's what he's counting on. And to be honest with you, it's not just Tim Scott, it's all the contenders to be VP. They're betting that Trump goes to prison. And then they can become president. And they're not going to pardon him. Now, you say, will Trump set up someone to be a successor for 2028? No. No. I believe the reason he'll pick Tim Scott is because he knows that Tim Scott won't be the nominee in 2028. Yeah. Now think about this. This is gonna sound a little crazy, but follow me on this. He knows if he picks a black person, especially a black man, that he'll have no chance of being the nominee in a Republican primary in 2028. He knows this for a fact. Trump does. He will probably go with Tim Scott because if he knows he's going to prison, he wants it to be an open primary in 2028. Follow me on this. Why would he want it to be an open primary in 2028? So his son, Donald Trump Jr., can run for president. You think Trump Jr. wouldn't beat Tim Scott in a primary for the Republican Party, knowing that Trump has turned the party into a cult? The whole election in 2028 would just be about who will pardon Donald Trump. Whoever the Republican nominee says that they'll pardon Trump will be the nominee. Hey, I'm the son of Donald Trump. I'm definitely going to pardon my father. Make me the nominee. I'll pardon Trump. That's what the whole thing is going to be about in 2028. Don't you know? Can't you see it already? So he's going to pick Tim Scott, knowing Tim Scott can't get elected in 2028. So his son can be the nominee for the party. Yeah, the party is just going to be Trump forever. That's what happens when you make a cult leader a nominee for a major political party. They don't go away. Cults don't really go away. You are still dealing with cults called religions, and they've been around for thousands of years. It's hard to get rid of a cult, believe you me. I know. Absolutely, I think Donald Trump Jr. will be the nominee in 2028. Yeah. Tim Scott will be nowhere in the equation, even if he's selected to be the VP, which I believe he is going to be selected. You heard it here, folks. I believe Tim Scott will be selected to be the nominee in 2024. Trump's VP, Tim Scott. Yeah, Tim Scott. And if Trump manages to win hook or crook, Tim Scott will not be the VP. Then they'll put the real person in there. He'll just fire Tim Scott. Yeah. Or worse. You read between the lines. Yeah. He won't make it to Inauguration Day, though, that's for sure. Bet on it. Bet on it. That's Tim Scott and Trump together is a marriage of total and utter political convenience. And when it's not conveniently beneficial for one or the other party, one party goes away. And I know one thing, in dictatorships, you never know the second person. There is no Batman and Robin in a dictatorship. It's only Batman. Yeah. Do you know who Putin's second in command is in Russia? His partner in crime? Doesn't have one. Do you know who President Xi's partner in crime is in China? Doesn't have one. Yeah. Dictators don't have sidekicks. Yeah. Tim Scott would not, no. Anybody that saw what happened to Mike Pence would be truly petrified of getting that position. I'm just telling you the truth. I'd be petrified. I wouldn't want that position. Yeah, well, that's going to be interesting because, if Tim Scott does accept a VP pick, he's got to hope that Trump gets thrown in prison before the convention, too. Because if that happens, it'll give him time enough to go and make a name for himself, to build momentum at the convention. But if Trump is still around, hanging around, and he's not in prison, still pretending he's running for president, that doesn't help Tim Scott. Remember, Nikki Haley is going to run for president again in 2028. Her competition is probably going to be Trump Jr., not Tim Scott. Yeah, no. Do I think Tim Scott should do it? Talking from a purely ambitious point of view, absolutely. Why not? You're not going to turn down the vice presidency. Nobody would do that. But here's the thing. It's very perilous. It's a very perilous move that he's going to have to make. Because if Trump lingers, the longer Trump lingers as the Republican nominee for president, the more Tim Scott is in danger. Real danger if he's the VP nominee. Yeah, real danger. From MAGA. Not from people who are non-MAGA. No, his danger is solely from Trump's supporters. Because remember, a cult leader doesn't need a second in command. Yeah. This is what's going to be so strange about this. Because if he picks Tim Scott, you're already not going to be as big as the cult leader. And the Republican Party is a cult for sure. It's a cult. You never, as second in command, can be bigger than the cult leader. Look at all the cults that have been around. They've had second in commands. They've had whole chains of commands. Maybe 3, 4, 5 different people. Charles Manson. Exactly. Somebody mentioned Charles Manson. Didn't Manson have a lot of those followers? You knew who some of Manson's followers were. Nobody was still as big as Charles Manson, though. So with cults, you gotta really be careful with cults. Because the second in command, nobody cares about that person. Not really. Not like that. I'm just telling you. Child, y'all are in for something this year. Y'all are in for a treat. I think he's going to pick Tim Scott. Yeah. Watch. I'm going to tell you something. Watch body language. Have you all noticed when Tim Scott is around Donald Trump, how he starts to behave? Oh, watch it. Watch when he's around those senators. And then look at how he's around Trump. And it's night and day. You all now looking at this? See, you better be looking at this because people tell you how they feel about people through their body language. Go and look at the tape. When he's around Senator John Thune, when he's around all those Republican senators, Lindsey Graham, he's just so comfortable. When he goes around Trump, he's just this happy-go-lucky, laughing, smiling. He doesn't do any of that when he's around those senators, though. Tim Scott doesn't even smile in the Senate. This is a fact. Go and look at all the press conferences he's held, standing next to senators. He doesn't smile. He stands straight face, at attention, very solemn and serious. When he's around Trump, he's just so giddy. Have you all noticed that? That was the first thing I noticed, how his body language and behavior is totally different. Now, if I'm watching this, I'm looking at somebody and I pick up body language really well. I'm really good at that. When people do that, they're nervous. And boy, he's nervous around Trump. He's very, very nervous around Trump. Somebody said, is he nervous out of being uncomfortable? I don't know, because I'd have to read his mind, and I can't read his mind. But I can tell when somebody's nervous. And he's extremely nervous and anxious around Trump. Yeah. Well, Trump's interaction, his body language is that he doesn't really care about Tim Scott. I get the impression when Trump is around Tim Scott, he doesn't care. It's like he doesn't need Tim Scott. That's the body language I get from Trump. He knows he's using Tim Scott, but he doesn't need him. Anybody that'll use you but doesn't respect you, be wary of somebody like that. Be very, very wary. So I'll tell you. Because as long as they need you for a purpose, they'll keep you around. Oh, yeah. But, well, you know how it goes. We all know how this game goes. But, yeah, for sure, I would do it. I would be his nominee for BVP. If I were Tim Scott, yeah. It's a good gig. But it's a short-term gig if you don't play your cards right. Tim Scott, the moment he gets selected, he's going to have to start playing his cards right. On top of being nervous about Trump and what MAGA might do, he's got to worry about Vice President Harris. She's no lightweight, you know. A lot of them think, you know, it's going to be easy with her. You wait. You watch. You'll see. Vice President Harris is ruthless. Watch out. Believe me, I know. I used to be out in Cali when our current Vice President was, you know, Attorney General. Yeah, I remember. Because in Cali, they do politics different. Everybody knows everybody out in Cali. It's a lot of glad handing and, you know, you meet people. It's a huge state. So when you do have campaign events, you really got to get to know the people. Yeah. In the South, you know, it's folksy and stuff, but you don't have to get to know people. Cali, you got to get to know people. Yeah. Yeah. So, Tim Scott and Vice President Harris debating. That'll be interesting, to say the least. That'll be an interesting debate. You know, I'm not sold that it'll work on MAGA. It's going to be a bitter pill for them to swallow. To see a black man, after they did that to Barack Obama, Really? Yeah, this is the same party that threw a hissy fit about Barack Obama. Now with Tim Scott, see, this is how you know that it's not just anti-Democrat. It's anti-black. Yeah. And so they're going to try to pretend and grit their teeth about it, but they're not going to be happy. Trust me, they're not going to be happy about it. But Trump has got to do it because this is his only shot. He's got to try to fool and con enough people to vote for him. And like I said, on the margins, it'll probably help with black men. I'm not going to lie, it'll probably help. But on the margins, it's not going to help with white women. Not at all. So whatever black male vote he gets, he's going to lose white women. Yeah. And do I think he'll pick a woman to be his vice president? No. No, I don't. I think it's going to be Tim Scott. If I had to guess, if I had to choose and guess, I think it's going to be Tim Scott. That's going to be wild, you all. That's going to be wild to watch MAGA just do a complete 360. Be like, yeah, I love black people. You know, I've got one black friend. That's going to be wild to watch them do that 360. Because then they're going to have to be doing mental gymnastics in their mind. Because their mind is going to be telling them Tim Scott is a DEI hire every time they see him. Not about what he says. When they physically see him. These are racist people. They don't like seeing anyone non-white. That's what a racist person is. So anytime they see him, he's going to be a DEI hire in their mind. All while they're telling themselves they love him. He's perfect. Yeah. Gonna be the wildest, craziest thing to watch these people go through this type of mental gymnastics in their mind. Completely tell lies to themselves. Completely. Try to tell lies to us. Yeah. It's going to be wild. It's going to be wild. It's going to be wild to watch this. So, congratulations to probably Tim Scott on being selected to be Donald Trump's VP. Good luck. May the odds be, I guess, well, we won't say that. Because, you know, I'm riding with Biden. Yeah. But, yeah, best of luck to him. He's going to need it, for sure, you all. He's going to need a lot of luck. You all, you pray for Tim Scott. Pray for his safety. I'm being serious. Pray for his safety. That man, he's going to be in danger from MAGA. Cults don't need sidekicks. They don't need sidekicks, you all. Dictators don't have sidekicks. He's going to be in danger from MAGA. Remember, I told you that first. I don't believe he will last to the inauguration, but if he did, he's going to be in danger. Period. They can try to pretend all they want for an election. We know MAGA is anti-black, anti-Semitic, anti-immigrant. They hate folks like that with a passion. And for an election, they might grimace while they grin. But deep down inside, we know who them folks are. Yeah. And they'll pretend shuck and jive, just like Tim Scott does when he's around Trump. Go and look at the tape. When he's in the Senate, he's stone cold, dead serious. When he's around Trump, he's just the giddiest child you'll ever see. It's like he's just in a candy store and he's just so happy. Ooh, there's chocolate. Ooh, there's vanilla. Oh, that's strawberry. Oh my goodness, there's sherbet. He's just so happy around Trump. Now think about this, you all. Do you know anybody else that gets that happy being around Donald J. Trump? I know a lot of people. They're never happy to be around him.